what is taking place right now?
There's a lot of different things at play right now. We've got a lot of different portals. We've got energies coming from the great central sun. There's a lot of energy. There's a massive black hole in there, which has sucked in a lot of light as well. And there's lots of things going in and out of that as well. We've got cosmic rays that are hitting us, and we're getting DNA upgrades and encodements and so on and so forth. There's also the Pleiadeans talk about Enki's gift, putting coding in us that if we were to meet the Armageddon timelines, encodements would switch on and basically get us to snap out of it. Well, if you're a Pleiadian or a Targaryen, Earth's calling card, is 7.5. Because everything is energy and frequency out there in the cosmos. That a lot of Starseeds, old souls don't want to be here. There's a lot of root chakra damage, which is prevalent. Especially the old souls have been through the earth plane and the skullduggery and the drudgery and the hard work and the old energies and everything else and the.
The power you seek lies within you, as we are each infinite beings living a human experience. The truth of who and what we are has been hidden from us until now. Awaken, my friends, to this new reality that we are in fact creating everything through the power and the gift of our wonderful imagination. Join me as I unlock the secrets of our past and reveal the truth that has been clouded in this veil we call life. What reality will you choose to create today? The choice is yours. Welcome, my friends, to My Reality Practice.
Hello and welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on the Reality Practice podcast. Today's guest is the amazing Alexander Quinn. In 2011, Alexander awoke in a Nashville hospital after a serious accident, which triggered a vast spiritual awakening within him. During his post-recovery, he had a series of ET experiences, which set him on a spiritual odyssey where he evolved his psychic abilities and his understanding of what his own Earth incarnation signifies at this time of the Great Planetary Shift. He also discovered that he had a deep emotional connection beyond the physical nature of his earthly family, and he began to explore the nature of the galactic connections we all have. As a result of these unique points of connection, he now specializes in the Starseed Ascension phenomena and has a book coming out this summer with Ozark Publishing, who is also the producer or the publisher of the Dolores Cannon books. So without further delay, let's welcome Alexander Quinn to the Reality Practice podcast. Hello, my Starseed brother. How are things in your universe today?
Yeah, everything's good. I've just had my lentil dinner, and I will be doing this interview and then some meditation and an early night. Apart from that, things might end up very, very quiet, very, very simple. That's the way I like it. As I think that's the way I like it, baby. I don't want to live forever. I think Lemmy said that, but yeah, everything's very good. Everything's very, very good way in. Things are really, really taking off. As you said, the book is coming out, and there's so much to talk about regularly on YouTube, and yeah, I mean, I do readings for people, and I just see the changes all the time. When I'm doing readings for people, it's just the world's changed very, very quick at this moment in time, and the man went into like a labor in 1987 on the 16th of August when we had the harmonic conversion. And now, the big reconstruction years are 2020 to 2025. But it's like when you leave college or university, like sometimes it takes a year or two just to put into fruition what it is you've learned. And there's going to be a period like that on Earth. It also coincides with the Uranus return, where we're going to take stock of the big quantum years, 2020 to 2024 or 2025. And the really, really big change are really going to start actually coming in and happening. not long after that. So I keep seeing around 2027 when a lot of the work we're doing now in the big reconstruction years really starts to come together. And you're seeing some really big change. But right now we're in the most accelerated part of the breakdown period where we're getting economic, crises and crises, or, we're getting food shortages, and we're getting changes in society. We're getting all these different things happening because it's the big reconstruction years before we get all the more grounded stuff coming in. So it's certainly, as Charlie Ward always says, I don't know with you, but I feel like I'm about to say something. Charlie Ward, it's a very good time to be alive. It's an exciting time to be alive, as Charlie Ward would say, for those who watch Charlie Ward. So, the Ascension symptoms are just, are just kicking off. All the, our bodies are upgrading. We're getting pains and all sorts of things, and we're having to adapt how we live, work, eat, breathe, and it's a very accelerated time right now.
I couldn't agree more. It's so exciting to be alive, to be able to witness what we're experiencing right now. It truly is biblical, as they say, and we're learning the truths faster and faster about who and what we actually are, and kind of our purpose in this galactic universe we perceive to be living in. I wanted to bring you on the show specifically because I haven't introduced my audience. I speak a lot about spirituality, the law of one, galactic. I speak about stuff, but I don't really get as deep. I don't think I've had a guest on yet like you that can really break down. And we can go deep for sure, but also kind of like the simplistic nature of Starseeds and the idea of these galactic connections and communities that are out there, and even like just kind of briefly get into like the cosmic and the solar energies that are bombarding us right now, that it's causing these huge, big changes. And for 90% of the population, maybe more, they don't realize what's actually happening. And can you explain kind of, what is taking place right now, kind of on a general scale, and then we'll start diving into it even more.
Well, do you want to start from a scientific point of view or a spiritual point of view? Which one?
They both play an important role here. I was always, before I found the spiritual side, if it made scientific sense, then I could accept that. It opened the door to question more for me. So I'd love to hear kind of a basic scientific explanation. What is happening? And then let's go start diving into that spiritual realm of what is really happening.
Well, my coming book, I actually I marry science and spirituality together because spirituality is just science that hasn't caught up yet, because it's still too linear and in repetition and things like that. But
the magic of the day is what one of my mentors used to say it is,
Yeah. Spirituality, is really just metaphysics, meta being Greek, so beyond physics, or should we say spirituality is just beyond the physics we understand right now, but it won't be long before it's not. What we're looking at, from a more scientific point of view for some of your people who are watching is that, it's a lot of different things at play right now. We've got a lot of different portals. We've got energies coming from the great central sun. There's a lot of energy. There's a massive black hole in there, which has sucked in a lot of light as well. And there's lots of things going in and out of that as well. We've got cosmic rays that are hitting us, and we're getting DNA upgrades and encodements and so on and so forth. And there's also the Pleiadeans talk about Enki's gift, which was something the Anunnaki did. Enki was a part of the the Anunnaki, and they were master geneticists. So he against the grain, put encoding in us that if we were to meet the Armageddon timelines, encodements would switch on and basically get us to snap out of it and save ourselves. On top of that, the Schumann resonance is changing. We've got the Earth used to resonate for all of recorded human history at 7.83. That is the localized energy, or Earth's calling card.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, when you go to Nashville, where I used to live, the calling card is like country music, for example. When you go to LA, you got a lot of rock music. Well, if you're a Pleiadian or a Targaryen, Earth's calling card, is 7.5, because energy is everything is energy and frequency out there in the cosmos. That like they might not register your name as as Alexander, they're registered as a frequency. So Earth's frequency has always been 7.85, and in 2016 we're getting these anomalies coming in and these big jumps, and now we're getting these huge jumps where it goes anywhere up and down up to 100 or more. Some days we get a plasmic energy coming in, and gamma, because whenever we get changes in our massive changes in human consciousness, the sun it usually goes in tandem. So when there are big sun cycles, it does affect human consciousness, and that has happened throughout the whole of our history. So not only is the electromagnetics of the Earth changing, we are of the Earth, we are on the Earth, and our synapses of our brain run on a electrical circuit. So if we are a bioelectrical circuit working in a changing environment, it's going to change us. We're going to get DNA upgrades, both from the central sun in the central core of our galaxy, and both from Alcyon. There's some transmitted energies coming from there, and also from our sun. Because as these energies hit our sun is changing. It's more brighter, it's more whiter than it's ever been. It used to be much more yellow, and it's got a lot more sun activity, a lot more spots where it's kicking off these CMEs. And usually when we get these big coronal mass ejections and the KP index goes up to 6, or we get these these M-class storms, people start getting the heart palpitations and the dizziness and the strange vision and stuff like that. So we're getting a lot of ascension symptoms. That's more of the science of it. Spiritually, our actual etheric body is taking on more light. We're actually able to handle more light. That's why we have to eat lighter foods. We can't handle eating red meat, stuff like that. And it's not that unawakened 3D souls are less intelligent. They're just as intelligent as awakened people. It's just that awakened people can bring more of their higher self in and play with their clair abilities and so on and so forth. So we're stepping into an era where those who are, sorry, I've got a bit of dust on my keyboard, those who are fully going into the awakened period they're going to find that especially I would say after, or coming into now, but especially after the big quantum reconstruction years, I would say 2025 onwards, that they're going to be much more centered, much more grounded, much more psychic, much more of the Earth than they have ever been before, and actually feeling like they want to be here. Whereas a lot of souls, a lot of starseeds, old souls don't want to be here. There's a lot of root chakra damage, which is prevalent. You've got to take into account, a lot of starseeds, a lot of spiritual people, have, especially the old souls, have been through the earth plane and the skullduggery and the drudgery and the hard work and the old energies and everything else, and working through an old energy was tough. So often, you get some of these old soul star seeds and indigos and Blu-rays, the ones who are been here for a while, who prefer to have a non-physical experience and stay in the higher chakras rather than the lower ones, and turn to spirituality without working through all the issues. So, as time goes on, there's a push-pull energy where the energies feel very, very high right now, very, very floaty, but very dense, because we're purging a lot, working on the lower chakras. But I see sometime 2025 onwards, our powers of manifestation are going to be much faster. That's why, you get all these ascended masters and people like Cryon, channeled by Lee Carroll, will say, the wind is in your sails now. Now, what you didn't achieve before, what you didn't achieve in 2013 to 2019, the big reconstructing years where everything was changing and your molecular chemistry was changing a lot. Don't worry, you can go back to it if you need to, if you want to, because you'll be able to manifest at twice, maybe 3 times the speed once we've gone through the process and everything is open, everything's ready to go. So we're going through these big changes, and the systems, old 3D changes, Keanu Reeves goes on about how the Matrix movie wasn't a movie, it was a documentary. It's so true. So to some degree, we are living in a holographic matrix, but we are, in control of our reality. So it's, there's a lot to think about. We're going up through the landscape of not only dimensionality, but density. So our vibrational landscape is changing, and some of the highest frequency souls at this moment of time, as the Arcturians, keep telling me, are coming in right now. Not only from this galaxy, but from the universe are coming in right now. And some of them will stay on. Lots will stay on, but lots will go back to their home planets, because there is a danger upon staying on Earth, because the physical qualities in the physical world are so addicting that we become like a link to the physical world. So it can be an addicting place in terms of its physicality. So some stay, some go. Some of the ones that bring their own cultural identities, ethos, ideas, energies, and vibrations from their home planets. Many more are coming in from the usual ones that we've already heard about now. Some of them will go back to their own cultures, their own planets. Some planets are actually not planets, they're actual stars. There's beings who live inside stars. They have domes inside stars, and some beings are just plasmic, spiritual, ascended master level. So some are non-physical, plasmic. So they go back to where they came from, have to be deprogrammed from some of the lower density that we've been in, and the addictions to the physical world. So we're looking at a spiritual, metaphysical, and scientific changes going on right now, which came about through the precession of the equinoxes, and we're currently in Aquarius rising. We came out of Pisces, and it's a game changer. Everything's changing. We're getting these massive portals coming in now. So now more than ever, you got to ground, you got to meditate. The Arcturians, they're often saying to me, they're saying, if we could have you in constant prayer and constant meditation, that's how we would prefer you to be, because when you're doing that, you're anchoring the light down into the grids. The crystalline grids of the earth are changing and healing and so on and so forth. So that is a kind of answers your question a little bit.
Well done. That was very wide ranging, but very in depth on a lot of different topics. I plan to kind of go into depth here. I know for me, you mentioned like foods, the different changes we're experiencing. And if other people out there are experiencing the same things, which they are, I know for me, the foods I used to like just don't taste good anymore. I haven't eaten yet today. It's almost 1 p.m. I don't feel the urges that I used to have anymore. It's like if I eat 1 time a day, I'm good. But, I also, a lot of energy, especially around the lunar cycles, drains me. And, I'm trying to track it so I can keep, next week, I'm going to have a slow week. It's going to hurt a little bit. So it's really kind of an awareness of realizing what's happening, I think, for people. And once they start to understand things are happening, then it gives them that ability to start, again, like I said earlier, start questioning, okay, this makes a lot of sense, what I'm hearing here, even though a lot of it can seem a lot of, very far out there to a first-time listener or somebody that hasn't done the kind of research you've done and the type I've done. Let's kind of get into, you mentioned one thing real quick. I don't know how quick we can go into it, but the idea of densities versus dimensions. This is a huge topic, I think, out there, because a lot of people focus on densities. Oh, we're transitioning from 3rd density to 4th now, which is all about love. And other people talk about the different types of dimensions. And it's like when we're going into the 5th dimension, we can now manifest instantly, whereas the 4th dimension's more about understanding how the concept of space and time versus time and space work. Very confusing to most of us, and it still gets me kind of tied up a little bit, even though I try to talk about it often. Can you break it down kind of simply, difference between the densities, the dimensions, and where we're headed, where we're at, and where we're headed, to the best of what you understand it to be?
It's it's really easy. to understand this. It's not difficult. Densities and dimensions are different. A density is a vibration. It is a vibrational landscape which you can actually feel and experience within the actual reality that we call our now.
Okay.
That is felt in terms of energetic response between you and the universe, and also how your body operates and your inner understanding in the way that you interact with the external world.
Okay.
Dimensions are not necessarily an energetic landscape. Dimensions are timelines and lots of different places within the time-space construct. So you can have a parallel dimension running with another you in another place, which is in another density. So there might be another higher version of me on another timeline somewhere else. Different densities are different dimensions, are different timelines and places when the dimensionality is much more when you start looking at wormholes and time travel, things like that. A density is a vibrational landscape in terms of the reality that you actually sit in and you can feel that you're in. For example, easily most described, if anyone's interested, they go to my YouTube channel. The first videos, I made a whole series about every density, all the way from 3 to 8, what they do and what they mean and what they feel like in great detail.
I got to watch those. That stuff, I can't get enough of it. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
No. The third dimension, mostly easily explained, is the material world of fear. People who are, have a very overactive root chakra. They are obsessed with money and material things. That's not to say it's in 5D, it's all about abundance and all things like that. That's not to say having lots of money is not a good thing. Being successful and being abundant is a wonderful thing. And everyone should have lots of money and be abundant, but not when it rules you. So in the third density, which is material fear, everything is led by fear. Fight and flight, fear, survival of the fittest, and not having material wealth, being fearful of those who do. And then when you do get material wealth, fearing that you'll lose it. Everything is based around fear. So then we have to lie and mistrust others, because not only do we not trust others, we don't trust ourselves. So, a lot of the paradigms in the third dimension are very, very low vibrational psychological constructs. And the body in the third density is also much more carbon-based at an atomic level, which means you don't get the same responses from your body. So you can smoke and drink and take drugs and eat red meat every weekend. And then you suddenly get to a stage where you're getting cancer and you're getting all these things, and your body hasn't been giving you the signals because in a very low dense carbon body, there is a very poor relationship in a low density between the soul which comes in and takes on the human form. But in a higher density, like in the fifth density, or certainly in the higher fourth, you start to get this conversation going on between the soul and the body. And the body's talking to you all the time. It's telling you, I can't have this food anymore. I can't do this. And that's why you get the ETs and the beings in the fifth density upwards. They don't suffer illness. They don't grow old. They live for sometimes hundreds of times longer than us. I mean, the Anunnaki can live up to 1 million years. So 300 years for us is there a month for them. Anyway, that's more like dimensionality and things like that. So as you go up through the densities, also, synchronicities speed up. As you go up through the densities, vibrational abilities speed up, so you can manifest more quicker. And the electromagnetics generally in a higher density are different. So when you go to Arcturus, the actual physics of the electromagnetics surrounding those beings, in Arcturus is very different to this planet. We wouldn't be able to, as a human, go there because our body wouldn't be able to take those energetics. And it's the same for the Arcturians. when they come to Earth, the energies of this planet do funny things to their physical bodies when they're in physicality. Sometimes they're not. So it's like with the secret space program. When they've taken astronauts to other planets and certain grays have taken them away to other places, and they didn't live very long because the magnetics and the electromagnetics of wherever you call home needs to be in resonance with whatever it is your cellular DNA is living in at that moment in time within the physical vessel that our soul comes in and basically lives through. So as you go up through the densities, as you go up through ascension or you ascend, more of your higher self, which is your oversoul, because not all the soul comes in, only a fraction of it does. In a lower density, only some of it comes in, maybe an eighth. And most of it's on the other side. That's why most of your soul is on the other side of the veil. That's why they call it your oversoul or your higher self. That's your intuition. Mm-hmm. So there's a constant battle. It's much harder in the lower densities between the higher self, which comes in through the crown chakra up here. The battle is between the ego and the higher self. So in the lower densities, there's this massive battle between ego and spirit. In the higher densities, when you're getting up into 5, it's much more pronounced. You're much more able to get intuition and your clairabilities, your claircognizance, your clairaudience. So you're much more connected. And as you go up into, the 6th density and so on and so forth, the body becomes much, much lighter, much more crystalline. More of your soul can actually come in to the body, because in a 3rd density, if all of your actual soul came in, the body would actually perish. It's too intense. So it's all about physicality and also those who are ascending. You were saying at the start of this discussion, you only need to eat once a day. You've got more energies, all things like that. It's because your etheric body, as you go up into a higher density, can take on more vibrational energy, and more white light, more creator source energy. So you don't need to be pumping the food with as much, the body with as much food. So the thing is with densities, though, is that you can't go back. So once the body is already attuned to a certain density, for you to go back, you would be out of ease. So you would be going from ease into dis-ease, otherwise known as disease.
Mm-hmm, right.
So that's why, you can't go back. You can't go out, I'm on the ascension path. I've been doing it for, a whole lot of years. I'm going to go back. You'd become very, very ill. So there's only one way forward. You're going to move forward. In terms of densities, the collective, I would say up until 2012 was in the 3rd density. 2012, we ascended and we went into 4th. And a lot of the collective are somewhere in lower 4th, higher 4th, and you get a lot of spiritual people who are getting more and more experiencing more and more pockets of 5th. But the collective are not in 5th. The collective is still in 4th. But you can ascertain, you can experience pockets of 5th depending on your health, depending on how the foods you eat, depending on things you've cut out, poisons you cut out of the body, depending on how much you meditate, depending on your personal vibration, you can achieve much larger pockets of 5th, although there are only a very small proportion of people on the planet who are in 5th all the time. Okay. So as we start to go into the higher densities, it's like a ripple effect. So as the Starseeds and the light workers are working with the higher densities, we are grounding it down into the grids, and then it becomes more accessible for the rest of the collective, for them to rise up as well. So that's a basic overview of densities and dimensions. In another dimension, we had the Armageddon timeline, and then I think a few thousand years after that, something like a human form of us did turn into greys on another timeline, and that's where they started working with the mantis beings who had a different type of collective consciousness, like a hive consciousness, in order to resolve that situation. Now Bashar talks about, who channels the Essasani, the little hybrid beings who are half Zeta, half human. So there's a lot of different types. Right now we are on the Ascension timeline. So if you're here, we're on the Ascension timeline, and we are going to inherit the Earth. We are the beings on the edge of an ascended planet. We're not quite there yet, but we're very much on the ascended timelines, and with the light has one. So it takes longer for that reality to filter down to our physical reality down here. But for the galactics and the angelics, the ascended masters, our angels, and our mates on the other side of the veil, some are physical, some non-physical. Pretty much when 2012 hit, it was obvious to them, but it takes longer to come into our reality because we're still paying bills and a mortgage, and we're still dealing with polarity and other things, in our lives down here, which are learning tools, which also have, not mortgages, but other things that we go through in our lives, learning curves, helping us work through our shadow work, past akashic issues and trauma and unfinished business and blah, 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 and so on and so forth.
I love that answer in its entirety. It made me think. I wrote down, would you agree? Because you said we can't go, like, our physical 3D bodies can't sustain in other planets, other frequencies. We're not ready yet. Would you agree that that's the reason in our perception of time or timeline here that we haven't learned this earlier, that we haven't made contact earlier? It's we physically were unable to receive that sort of light, or to travel there, we would die, so it's kind of like a fish out of water almost, if we would have learned before we had the scuba gear to more or less allow us to breathe in the water. Is that kind of a good analogy? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. In fact, the water is a great one. There was an Arcturian message that I put out describing it like that. You imagine the third dimension as the bottom of the ocean. It's very dark. It's very heavy. There's a lot of pressures down there. It's murky. Everything's very, very slow. You can't see much in front of you. You've got a very limited peripheral field of vision. A lot of the senses are closed off. As you start to go out through the densities, it gets lighter and lighter as more light can penetrate into the water, which is what is happening to the planet. As you start to get to the edge of the water, you basically come into the fifth dimension and beyond, and then you start to fly, to really, really fly. So the oceans is a really great way to explain it. But we're not physically ready to be going out of our solar system right just now. That's partly why our solar system is in quarantine, and there's not much they can get in and out of it, including our ET man-made ships. We could go to Mars because it still is not that dissimilar of Earth. In fact, Mars used to be like an Earth planet,
right?
Before there were
massive. Right. Maldek was the planet just beyond Mars.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Mars used to be where some of the a lot of different colonies lived there. There's been Arcturian bases, Lyran bases. And then eventually there was the Igigi, which were the Anunnaki worker force, were all working there until there was a massive uprising, and that's a whole nother story. I've had incarnations on Mars. I know other people have too. And there was a big, they destroyed that planet with a massive nuclear explosion, which wiped out the atmospheres and so on and so forth. So that's why it's not inhabitable anymore. You can still find Xenon, I think it's Xenon 912, which is a certain isotope only found after the explosion of weapon-grade atomic bombs. What the hell is that doing on Mars?
Right. Well, if it's supposed to be uninhabited, nobody's ever lived there, nothing's ever been there. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a certain, I think it's the Cydonia region on Mars where they got that face. That's actually a temple to an Anunnaki leader that was actually sent to Mars because he was doing some pretty bad things. So extradited there. And this whole colony has been living there and all the rest of it. The secret space program have been sending our people to Mars back and forth since, well, my understanding is since the early 80s.
Okay.
And there have been bases there for a long, long time. Just like when they got to the moon, it's no coincidence that, some of these astronauts became alcoholics and were very strange and were very quiet when they got back, because under penalty of death, they were said, if you talk about the fact that when you got to the moon and you weren't alone, and you weren't alone upon approach, we're going to murder you, we're going to murder your children and your grandchildren. That's often what these people do.
Right.
They threaten to wipe you out 3 generations. So,
So the secret has been kept long, deep, and buried, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you can look all this stuff up on the internet if you know where to go. But that's why that's why and also some the deep state don't really enjoy making martyrs of people anymore, because when you kill someone, it's a pretty surefire sign that you just stop someone from saying something. So
right.
So everything is hidden in plain sight right now. I can't wait for the we're having more and more contact with the ETs. More and more people are coming around to also a lot of people have been ETs in previous incarnations.
Right.
We are ET. We have ET genetics inside of us. What do you think 95% of that junk DNA is? I mean, it's just scientists say it's just silly childhood bedtime story to say it's just a junk, but that's what's sort of switching on. So the Pleiadeans also help put a quantum chromosome into us, which is the 24th chromosome that science will eventually catch up and see, because we can only see 23 right now, but the 24th is quantum. So our DNA is changing, bodies are changing, the landscape's changing. That's why you're going to have new systems coming out, and all these systems that are changing. The ETs have been, and a lot of these civilizations around us have been drip feeding us these technologies,
right.
which a lot of these inventors then take the credit for. So why do you think in the last 50 years we've achieved more than we have in the last 1,000 years? Where does that suddenly come from?
Right. They say, the computers are getting smarter. No, I think a lot of it, you're right, has to do with these secret government programs. The technologies that are out there are having to be slowly dripped, slowly released to the public. Because if everything just came out tomorrow, that we can travel through space and time and we can live infinitely and heal our bodies, people would freak out. As great as it would all be, there would be mass hysteria around the world, right?
Yeah, well, that's why there's a lot of different reasons the governments won't give us disclosure, and they probably will never give us disclosure, because we are the disclosure. We don't need a government to tell us, from an old energy 3D paradigm, what we can and can't do, what we can and can't believe. People already know there's ETs out there and Arcturians and all the rest of it. So we don't need a government to come out and say we've already had disclosure. Also, the Canadian Defense Minister, Paul Hellyer, he openly came out. If you really do want to go looking for that type of thing, he's a YouTube video and he's wearing a yellow tie. It's either John Hellyer or Paul Hellyer. I can't remember. I think it might be Paul. But the secret governments have had free energy since the 50s or the late 40s, and the reason they're not going to come out and tell us about these there's free energies and ETs and things is because it's really going to upset the fossil fuel generation,
right,
who were given nothing but these tools to use, and then blamed for using those and said, well, you messed up the planet because of global warming and all this stuff, but actually it was us that gave you those tools because we black boxed everything else. Now, when you look at HARP, but also much more advanced technologies than HARP, for your listeners who don't know what that is, weather manipulative technologies. Right. Now, a lot of deep state and very, very high level government clubs, do you want to call it, and the Club of Rome, who have really messed up the circadian rhythms and the nuances of the oceans and the weather patterns of Earth, using the weather manipulative systems. So yes, the fossil fuel generation, given the tools that they had, have not helped with big gas guzzling cars and all the rest of it. But when the governments come clean that they've messed up a lot of our ocean currents and a lot of our weather systems with all this HARP technologies and weather technologies and all the rest of it. And we had we could have saved the planet in the 50s. So they've come so far that they can't turn around anymore. So they have to drip feed little bits in there, but it's not enough. We're on a certain planetary shift right now, a timeline, and we have to get to the collective to a certain place.
Right.
That's why the ETs are drip feeding little bits of technology in, giving us, getting us technologically advanced enough so that when we do get into these higher vibrations, we're going to be ready to be part of the galactic family and to come in without weaponizing it, because we're way too dangerous for the Arcturians and the Pleiadeans to come land on the White House lawn. And Arcturians have had ships which have been shot down. So, some of the governments go on that, the ETs, the bad guys, and yet they have technologies to just click their fingers and our planet just disappears immediately.
Right. Yeah.
And yet we have shot them down out of our skies using scalar weapons and 3D weaponized, things. And yet they have still not attacked us, and they have still not retaliated. So we've still got a way to go before we get full disclosure in the way that people want disclosure. But we already know they're out there, and you can speak to Pleiadians, you can speak to Arcturians. If you practice channeling and have a really good diet and meditate every day and all that stuff, you don't need Biden or someone to tell you how to get in touch with these beings. So
Agreed.
Many truths are starting to come out. And it's going to be shocking for a lot of people. There are a lot of shocks coming up. There's going to be many, many more. And a lot of people won't be able to handle the reality of that. So the best way to deal with that, and the Pleiadians and the Arcturians talk about this all day long, is 2 tricks. You must be in compassionate detachment or observational neutrality.
Okay.
You must be, because when you're in the ego mind and you're triggered, you're not in control of your inner self. The ego is coming in. It's taking control, and you're going down back into the third density.
You're getting that emotional loop, and it just keeps sucking you in.
It's like all these people who are caught up in these narratives. This guy's good. This guy's bad. That's a bad player. That's a good player. Elon Musk is bad. Elon Musk is good. All this kind of stuff. You're not in observational neutrality and compassionate detachment and in the 5th densities if you're coming out with stuff like this, because you're still purging a lot of trauma in your lower chakras and unfinished business. And if you haven't done your shadow work and you're getting that badly triggered by narratives which are playing out in the external, then you have not controlled your inner world and reached a higher state of mastery, which you do get in the 5th. Which is why, as we go up into the higher densities, we transcend politics. We transcend religion. These things which are controlling constructs, man-made constructs used for divide, conquer, and control. So if you're still getting caught up in these narratives, we've got to come out of that. So observational neutrality is how you go into the higher densities, have a higher control over yourself so that you can have more inner understanding, so that you are creating a world by which your inner understanding is then projecting an inner self, then that controls the outer world, not the outer world controlled by the Illuminatis or whatever you want to call it, programming, fluoride, the outer world controlling your inner world. No, the inner world controlling the outer world. And when we get enough people living from the inner outwards, and we get enough the collective being in the 5th, it will be a place whereby when our galactic brothers and sisters, Pleiadians, Arcturians, Targaryens, so on, so forth, will meet us on mutual terms and come down, because they don't want to come down here and get out the spaceships and be like celebrity. Because they see us as equal. They see us as like the law of one. So we have to go up to match them before they are ready to come down here. And also our skies, the military controlled sky airspace needs to calm the F down before they're shooting all these ETs down, because we're still considered a very hostile planet even now.
Right. Yeah.
So
they're waiting for us to calm down for sure.
Yeah. So
to get out of that living in fear, that lower third density fear-based, existence.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Very, very well said, my friend. Let's talk a little bit about starseeds. Kind of, who are they? What are they? Who am I? Who are you? How do we play this role? Dolores Cannon talks about the 3 waves of volunteers. For those that don't know, who are they? What is our purpose?
To raise the vibration of a planet, you have to plant seeds. To break down and change archaic, old energy paradigm structures, some controlled by the ethos of beings like Anunnaki or old bloodlines, hierarchical systems. You have to plant seeds into these places. And these seeds are high vibrational souls. Oh, that's the door. I'll get that in. I might have to get that right now. Can you bear me just one second?
Yeah. I'll just edit this out. No worries.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you, Martin. Okay, cheers. I'm so sorry about that. So sorry about that.
You're fine. I'll edit that out, so no worries.
Okay. So you have to plant seeds. Why seeds, Alexander Quinn? Why seeds? Why can't we just do this ascension thing and just push a button? Okay. There are rules. There are rules to this ascension thing. Okay. A planet Earth is one of the hardest schools, not only in the galaxy, but in the universe in terms of soul growth. Some of the energies and the force fields and the walls surrounding this planet have been so thick and so dense for such a long time that it's been almost impossible for any light or any outside external help to get in here and help change the system. So taking that into account, and taking into account that planet Earth there are galactic laws. Mm-hmm. You can't, it's a hands-off place. You can't come in here and just touch things and do whatever you want, like some races did. It's a planet of free will. So you can come down here and pretty much do whatever you want. And people have come down here and done whatever they want, and humans have done whatever they wanted for a very long time, including almost blowing the planet up. So considering there are galactic laws that prevent ETs from getting involved here, and the energies are so dense that you can't send any light in, or it's hard to telepathically get it. How do you ascend a planet like that? How do you do that? Well, so the Galactic Federation had a big discussion about this. There was lots of different councils they got together within our galaxy, and some from places very far outside of our galaxy as well. And they decided that Earth was worth saving, and they decided they would take a backdoor approach. So they would get some of the highest souls in the galaxy, and later now the universe, to come in through a backdoor approach. And souls that were Pleiadian, Arcturian, Syrian, Targaryen, Andromedan, so on and so forth, Lyran, they were going to get them to incarnate down here in human form and start bringing in the soul essence and teachings of their cultures through a back doorway, and planting seeds in culture and systems and the energetic and the grids of the earth. But if some of these beings come down in full remembrance of who they are, there are, I would say, dark forces or energetic things in place that are aware of them coming in.
Being the Orion group in those entities, correct? So, I mean, some of them.
Some of them, yeah. So there used to be witches in the Vatican who were aware of some of the highest vibrational souls coming down, and they would try and trap souls coming down and go off to other countries, and they would inflict terrible, painful births on the mothers who were giving birth.
Mhm.
and inflict terrible pain on the mother, so that some of these souls were coming down who were going to be like leaders in the field. These indigos, that are much more susceptible to mind control, because when you go through terrible trauma, especially in the early years of your life, it compartmentalizes the brain, and you're more susceptible to mind control. But that's a whole nother different thing. So,
Right.
so you have to come down, it cloaked in a shield of amnesia. And then you have to work back to who you are, so that you don't pop up on the radar, so that you're not coming down as this very high vibrational beat. And then once you're coming back into your full power, that's when you start doing the work. So a lot of these star seeds in the first wave, a lot of them committed suicide, or a lot of them didn't want to be here. It was super difficult. The second wave, my wave, it's much easier for us, because the first wave put all the effort in. And now we're getting the third wave. They came in later. They came in like 2000 onwards.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're getting the crystal children that came after that, and then the rainbow children. And then there's a new one called the diamond children. But some of the highest frequencies in terms of light are the white light and the violet light. So, so you've heard of, I don't know whether you have, but, some of the indigo children have this violet indigo aura around them. That's some of the highest vibrational energy coming in to help encode, this planet. How do we know, Alexander Quinn, about the indigos? How do we know indigo? Why is it called indigo? Where does indigo come from? So Nancy Ann Tapp who was a synesthesia, who had a very special ability. She could see auras. Mm-hmm. And in the late 70s, she had diagnosed all the auras. She knew the colors. She knew what the different auras were and what they did. And in the late 70s, she suddenly, for the very first time ever on the planet, started seeing people coming in with a new colored aura. What the hell is that all about, Alexander? Well, she started seeing these people coming in with an indigo violet colored aura that had never been on this planet before. So you started getting these much higher vibrational souls coming in there. That's why they call them the indigos, because Nancy Ann Tapp, who was a synesthesia, named them such. So we know about all these things from lots of different things. We know about it from people like Nancy Ann Tapp. We know about it from people. We know about the Arcturians. We know about it from the Galactics and people who channel and so forth and all these different things. So we know what's going on. So star seeds are these beings who are coming down to Gaia at this moment in time to help raise the vibration through like a kind of backdoor kind of play game, like kind of not through not playing or interfering with the laws of divine non-interference of free will, which are the galactic laws which surround this planet, coming down into the dense energies, coming back into creative source energy, finding out who they are, learning I'm an Arcturian or I'm a starseed or whatever, coming back into their power, and then using these energies to work with the grids of the earth to heal all the bad things that have gone in there, and go into banking and go into these systems and start changing it from the inside out. You've got people going into the educational structures and becoming teachers and teaching in different ways and delivering things in different ways, because a lot of these autistic children and very high vibrational children who are indigos and rainbow children, they can't stand to be taught in these old linear paradigm ways. It's awful for them. So everything in our world has to change to go up into the fifth density, vibrational density. And we have all these light workers and starseeds who are coming in and doing all this work from the inside out through the back door. So this is who the starseeds are. Some of them are old souls. Some of them have been down here for a very, very long time. And some are the newbies. They come in and they're just figuring out how all this works. Some stay, are going to stay for the duration and inherit the earth, and others will go back, and they will have to be deprogrammed to some degree through some of the things they've been through here and the addictions of the physical manifest world of Gaia. Right. Gaia is the galactic name for Earth. So that is who the starseeds are, and that is what they're here to do. And eventually, when all the systems are broken down and the collective is all in the fifth density and upwards, and we are vibrating as a unified collective, the Starseeds won't need to keep coming down here, in so many. But that's why we got the baby boomers. That's why we've got this massive upsurge in population. People are rushing, souls are rushing to get down here and be part of the greatest ascension story, certainly in this galaxy, and all eyes are on us. There's not a surprise that, suddenly we've got so many people giving birth to so many children all the time, because all the souls are rushing to be down here for this great time of ascension, predated by the Mayans, the Hopi Indians, so on and so forth. And they knew all about it because of the precession of the equinoxes. So many different things at play in here, and I can describe all of that if and when you want to know about anything I talked about. But those are the fundamental basics.
Okay. For me, I know it resonates with me for sure. Almost that entire time you've been talking, my whole crown chakra's just been vibrating, goosebumps. It's like, I love it. This, it makes so much sense. Now, how you spoke about the kind of universal laws. Where do you think are some good spots, places people can go to understand more of the universal principles that we're having to live under, like quarantine, all of that? I know the Law of One material, the Urantia book is so in depth in terms of the inner workings, the behind the scenes of how this is supposedly all laid out. Are there other resources? Where would you suggest people go to kind of dive deeper into understanding the principles of the universe at this point?
Well, I mean, we've had outside help trying to give us some of these things for a long, long time. I mean, the tablets of Thoth were extraterrestrial laws and things that came down. I had someone send me the tablets of Thoth 2 years ago, and I remember reading through them. Some really amazing stuff in there. Some of the Egyptian teachings, but but all you have to do is just follow some of the Arcturian teachings or whatever ET you most resonate with. They're talking about it day in, day out, all the time. A lot of the Syrians who came down and helped build the Egyptian empires, there's lots of teachings in there. But also, if you really understand what the fifth density is all about and how that vibration works, that's going to teach you a lot about it as well. And, there are people who are channeling these beings all the time. I channel Arcturian messages through automatic handwriting. But if you go to Daniel Scranton, he's doing it every single day. So
right. I love his
multitude and plethora of places you can go and see these things. But really, if you just meditate and listen to your higher self, your oversoul on the other side, you'll get messages come through, your intuition of what to do and how to do it and all the rest of it. You can actually do a lot yourself. I say to people, I have subscribers on my YouTube channel. A lot of people watch my YouTube channel, but I say to a lot of people who watch my YouTube channel, you don't need my YouTube channel. You don't need my videos. You don't need me. You don't need my book that's coming out with Dolores Cannon's publisher. You don't need me at all. All the answers, everything, absolutely, everything you need are in you.
Right.
If you need some external stimulus just to get you on your path, great. That's not going to harm you.
Right.
But ultimately, everything you need is in here. Everything.
I love that. You brought up Daniel Scranton. I love his work. And I found myself last year specifically, it was really crazy. Like his videos had come out basically every day. And literally I'd be thinking about a specific thought or a concept, or I'd be questioning something that just popped in my mind. And literally within 10 minutes or less, I'd get a bing on my phone and I would listen to his newest reading. And it was literally like, and this happened for months on end, where the exact thing I was thinking about.
I wonder if
coming through.
I wonder if you have Arcturian aspects. Let's find out right now.
I'd love to. I used to think Pleiadian, but I have really shifted over the last year to Arcturian, and it really resonates with me in more ways than I'd ever felt before.
Can I have your full name for a sec?
Yeah, actually, it's Robert Joseph Kramer.
That's Robert Joseph Yeah, you do have Arcturian aspects. You have Arcturian in you, very, very strong. That's probably why you're getting those synchronicities when you're with Daniel Scranton. And there's probably no coincidence that you're talking to me, because maybe the Arcturian in you wanted to reach out to another Arcturian. I find I get on best with other Arcturians and Lyrans, closely followed by Andromedans.
Very interesting. I drew an image from a meditation that came to me a couple years ago and didn't know, just sketched it out for whatever I imagined it to be. And then I saw a picture not long after of an Arcturian, and I'm like, oh my God, that's what I drew. I'm like, so it was kind of they show us, they light the bulb, and like show us. Yes. And it had the protruding kind of wider skull in the back here, and came down to more of a point just like that. Yeah. And it was, they're giving us signs all the time.
Yeah.
It's just, are we vibrating high enough to start receiving them and to resonate with them? I think that's the key to it all, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Well, some of us are having ET contact without knowing it, in our waking hours, in our dream state. And on board some of the Arcturian craft, they have libraries which document every single interaction we have. So they know all the interactions that they've had with every single person on the earth. So there's a record of each person and every interaction had on their craft.
Oh, wow. I sat up in my chair. You got me like super excited, because you just reminded me that, I wanted to mention about, I had a abduction happen back in 2016, and I was physically injured by it. And, tell me if you've heard stories like this or anything, but I awake, I'm sleeping at night, and I awake on a ship, metal steel corridor, kind of dim, but I'm walking, I'm crawling, and all of a sudden there's a little doorway for me to crawl into, and I crawl through it. I was scared. It's like I was fearful. So I'm like, I got to hide in here. I go into there, and the door closes behind me, and I'm in a big, let's say 40 foot by 40 foot open space with about 20 foot tall walls. And I look up and I see the earth. So I'm on a ship looking down, and the earth's right there. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? Next thing I know, the floor starts moving like this and coming up. I'm over here in between the wall, and it's coming up. And from what I could understand, it was a big satellite dish or something coming out, an array. But at the meantime, the wall's here, and it's getting ready to squash me up against this wall. And I'm freaking out. I'm jumping as high as I can, and I obviously can't reach the top, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs because I'm getting ready to get squashed. I wake up on my bedroom floor in a ball, screaming at the top of my lungs. My wife wakes up, who's the lightest sleeper in the world, so she would have known if I even moved an inch. But I'm on the floor across the bedroom, and I'm screaming. She flips on the lights, like, what's going on? And like, oh my God. And she looks down, and about a basketball size on my inner thigh bruise that was as black as my mic here had appeared. And what had happened was I somehow landed on top of our bedpost that was 5 feet in the air and had a round top to it. I landed on top of that in the middle of my sleep and fell onto the floor and awoke in just pure terror. And all I can think is I was getting ready to get squashed. I accidentally got out there. They were like, holy shit, we can't allow him to die. So boom, they instantly transported me. It's as if the ceiling above my bed opened up. I came crashing through. That's exactly where I landed and caused that bruise. And I even went to the doctor, the emergency room, the 2 days later on a separate issue, and I showed it to him. And the doctors look at me and they're like, we can't medically explain how you could have possibly gotten that kind of blunt force trauma, even if I would have jumped on the bed and bounced on it. Like it's not possible. You had to have had some sort of like traumatic, huge impact for that kind of damage to happen. And I'm just like, I couldn't tell him that I got shot out of a spaceship, so I'm like, I don't know what happened. But the more and more I've dove into that, I realized I think that's what happened. Yeah. But I haven't found anybody yet. I want to go under hypnosis or whatever. I'd like to kind of dive into what exactly happened and where I went, because it's just fascinating to me, but at the end of the day, I have no idea.
Well, we could sometime maybe do a session on that and do some dowsing on it and some bits and pieces, but a regression would be the best thing.
Right.
So that's what I would recommend. And in 20 minutes time, I'm going to have to go because I've got a client. So that means in 5 minutes time, I've got to go because I have to go and prepare and get my girlfriend up.
Right. And I don't want to take any more of your time. I knew we were hitting the hour mark and I wanted to try and wrap up, but God, there's so much I want to still dive into, but for another time, my friend. Let's talk real quick. Just give a shout out for your book coming up this summer with Ozark Publishing. What's it about? How can people pre-order it?
So there will be a pre-order link. I will be putting it on my YouTube. It's not out yet. It's a real privilege and a joy and honor to be part of the Dolores Cannon family. They really do bring out some great books. And Dolores Cannon she was like, she's been like the leader of this whole thing. She's like one of my idols. So it'll be out towards the end of the summer. I've got some channel messages in there from myself. I've got some things from an Andromedan woman who's put some messages in there. There's a whole load of sections about how the crystalline grid works. There's a whole chapter about the different ET races, what they look like, how they live, how they work, what they're doing, who, when, where, why, how, detail.
Love it.
There's a whole section on the dimensions, how they work. And there's a massive bit in there all about ascension. How does it work spiritually? How does it work scientifically? How does it work metaphysically? Because, this is not new age kind of, like voodoo stuff. There's a lot of science behind the changing energetics of a planet and also within our chemistry. So, eventually in 100 years time, they'll look at my book and say, that's not a spiritual book, that's a scientific book.
Right.
But right now, some of the planet will say it's a metaphysical book, when things catch up and all the rest of it. Electric light to Christopher Columbus would have looked like something that was, out of Star Trek, so on and so forth. But, we don't have to wait that long to get there. So, yeah, in the meantime, for updates and things, check out my YouTube channel. If you want to know about the dimensions, I've made a video on every one, and the book will be out. And likewise, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to your channel.
I'll have some links in the description box below for you guys to check out Alexander's work. Truly fascinating and phenomenal. So,
yeah, it's thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for your very, very kind words. I really appreciate it.
Oh, the honor is all mine. I so much appreciate you and all you do. Get his book, guys. Maybe as it gets closer to launch date to release, we can do another show devoted just to breaking down the book. I'd love it.
Sure.
But it's time for our last question that I ask every guest that comes on the show. Since this show's about creating your own reality, the version you want to live in, what reality, if I could snap my fingers right now, where would you be and why?
I would be at Woodstock Festival watching Jimi Hendrix.
Nice.
End of story.
I've never had anybody go backwards. That's fantastic. What an excellent answer. Because time, past, present doesn't exist. It's just where you want to take yourself.
Yeah, time is circular. You can actually, when you get to the other side, you can actually incarnate back in time. if you want to. People think it's only forward motion. It's not.
Right. It is a fluid resonance that I can go here, there, be anywhere, just based on when we finally understand that principle. Yeah. So
a lot of beings do keep going forward because they want to be on the ascension timeline. But beings can and do incarnate back in time to go back and either stop something or prevent something bad from happening, or to heal trauma within that timeline.
Right.
There is no past, present, future. It is all one. In fact, it's circular. So, yeah, my answer would be to see Jimi Hendrix in Woodstock and be part of that first wave of ascension energies coming in on the planet. The very first waves. That's where I would like to go back in time to that, and maybe see Led Zeppelin too. But
that's fantastic.
Back in the day. But that's just me. So
I love that answer. That's the first time we've had that one. So thank you for sharing, my friend. So thanks again for coming on the show. And I want to thank everybody who took the time to watch the video today. If you liked the interview with Alexander, be sure to hit the thumbs up, share this with your community, with your friends if it resonated with you. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you never miss my next episode coming out. And until next time, everyone, thanks for watching. Stay blessed. And remember to always ask yourself, what reality are you choosing to create today? Bye now.